to the Naked Tarot Podcast with your host, Janet Boyer. Get ready to strip down with the most provocative voice in tarot.
Hello, and welcome to the Naked Tarot Podcast. I'm your host, Janet Boyer, otherwise known as the Tarot Maven. I'm the author of Back in Time Tarot, Tarot in Reverse, and the upcoming Naked Tarot, Sassy Strip Down Advice. With my artist husband, Ron Boyer, I am also the co-creator of the Snowland deck and the Coffee Tarot. I invite you to visit my website, janetboyer.com, where hundreds of reviews and other goodies await. If you'd like to support my work, I am also on Patreon at patreon.com/Janet Boyer, where I have exclusive weekly tarot spreads, monthly Astro Tarot forecasts, and other fun things just for my patrons. Today we are going to be talking about the possibly controversial but fascinating topic of, is tarot spiritual? Now you might be wondering, why is this topic even important? Well, because too many people glom onto tarot thinking that using it or reading it is a shortcut to the divine, or they join an online tarot group only to realize that those groups are filled with more reactionary assholes than a legalistic Pentecostal church. So I find this topic very fascinating because when I entered tarot, I too thought it was a spiritual discipline, and it can be, depending on your intent. But then I quickly found out that many of those who use tarot are some of the most unconscious, reactionary, lower chakra slumming people I've ever encountered. Now, interestingly, what spurned this podcast is Avril Price, a wonderful, brilliant lady in the UK who hosts the Exploring Tarot Facebook group. She actually made a post about this, and it was just wonderful. And I am going to read what she said and my response, and then I'm going to elaborate on it of what does it mean to be spiritual in light of the fruit of the Spirit in the New Testament. But even if you don't jive with New Testament teachings, I think that almost all of us can agree that the first fruit of the Spirit listed, love, is the bottom line of most major spiritual traditions and religions. That love is the hallmark. You know, love is all there is, love is all you need, and love is a fruit of the Spirit. Okay, Avril posted this in her Exploring Tarot group. I was having a discussion with a friend recently where she said that she believed that people who read tarot or offered therapies or psychic readings were spiritual. She also thought that having an emotional moment was the same as being spiritual. I had to differ. I have met many people who were very gifted, but not in the slightest bit spiritual. They were often materially minded and preferred not to enter into anything that might encourage spiritual thought or reasoning. I also think that the emotions are not really spiritual in the truest sense of the word. Sure, they can lead to a spiritual experience, but they're more of a byproduct of our physicality. And I was wondering what you all thought. And accompanying her post, Avril also posted this quote, a meme. Many people think that being spiritual means being positive, but being spiritual means being conscious and aware. To become conscious and aware, we must become authentic. Authenticity includes both positive and negative. And I pretty much, agree with that. And my response in the group was, emotions in the lower chakras are what fuel fundamentalism. Emotions are triggered by assumptions and belief systems. It's what fuels mob behavior and riots. Intellectual prowess is not spiritual either. And tarot, not spiritual. And neither most of its practitioners. Spirituality is a thirst for the red pill at all costs. It's knowing we are conscious awareness living in a matrix, a simulated reality. In other words, in the world, but not of it, as Jesus would say. And the matrix is really a brilliant analogy of what I feel spirituality is and the nature of Earth and humanity. And if you remember the Matrix movie, all these people were plugged in. They were all happy and content, but was it real? They were basically artificial intelligence running programs through their mind, but they were not free because they were not aware and they did not have the power of decision. Spirit is consciousness. It is awareness. It is not the architect of the matrix, nor is it the programs that run in the matrix. Okay, this is very important to think about this, okay? And if you haven't seen The Matrix, oh my God, you really need to rent it. The Wachowski siblings are just brilliant in everything they do. They are really hooked up. But let me repeat that. Spirit is consciousness. It is awareness. Okay, now when these people were plugged into the matrix, they were not aware and they were not conscious. Okay, but spirituality and consciousness is not the architect of the matrix either. It's not the person who created the matrix. And neither is it a program that's running in the matrix. Many people mistake programs running in the matrix for spirituality. Religion, the different types of religion, not spirituality, but religion, systems, rituals, that's just another program running in the matrix. I mean, if you swap out fundamentalist Christianity and you go to Wicca, you're just switching out one program for another. I'm not saying that that program cannot lead to awareness or not, it can enrich your life, but I'm just saying that religion itself, just like politics and any system that has rules, regulations, guidelines, it's a system. It's code. It's the Hierophant. Instead, consciousness is the realization of limitless potential outside the matrix. It's oneness with the true creator and everything that is. Okay? And so, tarot is not spiritual. Tarot is just another program running in the matrix. However, it can lead you to greater awareness. And consciousness is a lot like peeling an onion. You know, you take away layers and layers and layers, and yes, you cry in the process, but it's stripping down everything that is not unlimited potential in consciousness. It's stripping down conditioning, entrainment, assumptions, unquestioned beliefs. And tarot itself is a program, but it can be a gateway to consciousness, as anything can, as long as it's like a form of the red pill. And in the Matrix, you might remember the blue pill keeps you, basically sedated, not questioning things, and with the status quo, and with the sheep. You don't think for yourself. You dare not, raise your head above the crowd, lest you become a target. Whereas the red pill is truth at all costs, even if it's painful. It's wanting to know the truth, no matter what. So tarot itself is not spiritual. It's just a tool, like a knife. Now, let's think about this. What separates Julia Child's use of a knife and Ted Bundy's use of a knife? Well, it's the purpose, right? It's the intent. It's the character of the person. It's the level of awareness of a person. Same way with tarot. Tarot itself is just, a picture book, a brilliant picture book, and it contains perennial wisdom and keys that can unlock awareness and can really help peel off the layers depending on, what level you're at and how you're vibrating, what your frequency is. How your chakras are balanced, what chakra lens you're looking through. But in and of itself, it is just a tool like a knife is. A knife could be used by a brilliant chef to make wonderful meals. A knife could be used if you are caught in a rope to cut yourself free, but it also can be used to hurt and stab and kill and maim. And interestingly, there's even a verse in the New Testament talking about this, saying that the word of God is like a two-edged sword. It can cut out, cancer. It can cut out disease. It can strip away those things that are deadly or toxic or unhealthy. But it also can wound and maim and kill. Now, there are people who are online in tarot, and they try to act spiritual. They even post quotes from spiritual sages. Or, they show their, smoking Palo Santo wood or their incense and their lovely crystal grids with their tarot spreads, all, meticulous, but that doesn't mean they're spiritual. It doesn't mean they're aware. Spiritual can actually be a code name for another program in the Matrix. It could be, some people would think spiritual means nice, or gratuitous or sycophantic, ordained or initiated or certified. Spiritual could be beloved by a certain leader or guru. Saying that you're spiritual, attending a certain church, coven, or grove, a devotee of a guru, or claims to be a master of an esoteric system. Okay, all that can be used to say a person is spiritual or even think a person is spiritual, but none of that is spirituality at all. So this comes to, well, what is spirit? And that's a good question. I believe spirit is, well, in the Old Testament's ruach or pneuma. It also translates as wind, life. Without consciousness, our body is dead. Our spirituality is not our brain synapses firing. It is that part of us that is eternal. And yes, I do believe, in an afterlife. I do believe in reincarnation. And I do believe that which animates us, the spark that is beyond personality, the brain, and what have you, our body, is our spirit, is that spark of the divine, that pure soul, that pureness that incarnated to experience certain things. But it gets crusted over by a lot of shit here on this earth, granted. And so I'd like to look to the fruit of the Spirit in the New Testament. You might be thinking, oh, there she goes with the New Testament again. Well, I'm sorry, but, a lot of people have thrown out the wisdom in the New Testament because they've been hurt by church, or they've hurt by asshole Christians, or the religion itself, or they may have misunderstood Paul and thought he was a misogynist pig, which if you dig deeper, you find out differently. Actually, some of the most brilliant wisdom in the New Testament is from the Apostle Paul. He's the one, as you remember, was called Saul. He was a persecutor of Christians, had this amazing aha moment where he was knocked off the horse with a kind of in terror terms, a judgment, wake-up call. And he heard the voice, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he was stricken blind for a while. And then he became, had an awakening and became one of the most effective and brilliant, wise people in the New Testament. Now, no man, of course, is perfect. And so I'm not, covering this to defend Christianity, because I don't even consider myself a Christian, quite frankly. Even though I'm a lover and follower of Christ, I don't consider myself a Christian because it's too loaded, but also because I don't believe in the tenets of Christianity. Like, I don't believe Jesus is the only way. I don't believe in eternal hell and things like that. So kind of exempts me from it. So I just, I'm a follower of Jesus, but I'm a follower and devotee of others as well. But anyway, that's not to say there is not some major wisdom in the New Testament. When you actually look in the original language, not in the hijacked stuff that fundamentalists perpetrate to try to oppress or scare people, but when you really start looking in the original language and you start looking at the New Testament symbolically and metaphorically and mystically, you got some really cool stuff in there. And I didn't realize that, when a lot of the stuff I had already studied in Bible college. In case you're new to my podcast, I'm a former ordained Pentecostal minister. I actually went to a theology college 4 years to study to be a minister, and I was an assistant pastor for a while, and that was a previous life. But I did tons of study in theology, Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, and hermeneutics and eschatology and all those ologies. But anyway, getting back to the fruit of the Spirit. As I had said earlier in the podcast, even if you don't think that all the fruit of the Spirit is a hallmark of being spiritual, I would think we all can agree that love is. And if you're not familiar with what the fruit of the Spirit is, it's love, joy, peace, forbearance, or also patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Now, you have to also dig deep to find out what these mean, because you might look at kindness on the surface and say, well, sometimes we're not supposed to be kind. And if that means bringing forth the truth and love, yeah, that means you can't offend sometimes. I mean, Jesus himself got pissed off in the temple when the money changers, was basically gambling in the temple, and he got pissed off. And he overturned the tables and said, you're making this house of worship a a brood of vipers, and and he was always criticizing the Pharisees. I mean, Jesus slammed them all the time. He says, you're like whitewashed tombs. He says, you look all white and clean and perfected and virtuous on the outside, but on the inside, you're like a tomb, dead men's bones. And so Jesus was harsh on the Pharisees, and Pharisees were the type of people that thought they were better than other people. They thought they were the ones who were qualified, and only them, to translate what the law was. They actually made hedges around the law to prevent people from even violating the law. So they were big on rules and regulations. They were very misogynistic and sexist, and it was basically their way or the highway. An extreme dark energy, the Hierophant reversed to the point where it was the devil. I mean, So anyway, the fruit of the Spirit. Okay, I'm going to go over each one of these, and I'm going to take you into the Greek to find out what it really means. What is the fruit of the Spirit? Because it seems to me that if you're going to discuss what is spiritual, then you kind of need to know what the fruit of the Spirit is. I mean, we've already discussed spirit as in consciousness apart from the body, and consciousness apart from entrainment and personality and assumptions and conditioning. And so what are the hallmarks of that pure spirit that we all incarnated with, that either could have gotten damaged, or we choose to take the blue pill and got hooked up with status quo and we totally forgot where we came from and what we're about, So it seems to me that the fruit of the Spirit is the best place to start. Now, interestingly, notice that it's not fruits of the Spirit, it's fruit. And the thing about fruit is that it can grow. So it's not you either have it or you don't. Fruit grows, and the more we practice certain aspects consciously, again, there it is, spiritual consciousness, awareness, actual work. This business of becoming conscious and aware of our infinite consciousness is work. It's a lot of work because we've incarnated in this dualistic earth. We have a lot of crap, that we need to work through and to kind of scrape off our souls. So let's start with the first fruit of the Spirit, love. Most religions, that's the bottom line of what is spiritual. Well, love itself could be a whole podcast because there are different words for love. There's phileo. Now that's where we get the term Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. Phileo is liking somebody because they're likable. It's liking somebody because you jive with them, because you approve of them, because they feel simpatico, like a friend, okay? And it's dependent upon your belief system and their behavior, okay? That's phileo. Then there's eros, where we get the word erotic, there's the sexual attraction and things like that. But then the love of the fruit of the Spirit is called agape. And agape is a choice, not a feeling, okay? Agape is undefeatable benevolence. It's unconquerable good, will that always seeks the highest in others, okay, no matter the behavior. Okay, get that? It's an undefeatable benevolence of unconquerable good that will always seek the highest in others no matter their behavior. That means agape is not like, oh, okay, well, I will love you if you're part of my tribe. I'll love you if I approve of you. I'll love you if you're in this particular group. I love you if you behave yourself. No. Agape says, I'm going to seek the highest of all people. I am going to think the best of them. I am going to give them chance after chance. Not an abusive situation, mind you. Love is not stupid. But I'm saying it's a general attitude where, you give people chances, you look for the highest in others, you assume the best, okay? This kind of agape gives freely without asking or expecting anything in return, okay? It's not like, okay, I'm going to give this person, a free deck in hopes that they give me a 5-star review of it. Okay, that's not agape. Agape is you give, somebody something because you feel to in your spirit, and you don't go and advertising it. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand does. You give out of the goodness of your heart. You're generous because you want to be generous, and you're not out tooting your horn about it. Also, agape does not consider the worth of its object. Okay, so if you're withholding love from a person, if you're withholding esteeming somebody as, is worthy, or having respect for somebody, and if you withhold that, that's feeling of benevolence or trying to seek the highest of that person or expect the best. If that is dependent on their behavior, then that's not agape. And agape does not consider the worth of its object either. So it's pretty high, heady stuff, right? Okay, and the reason why that's considered spiritual is because it's not earthly. It's not human. It's agape is something beyond ourselves. In 1 Corinthians 13, if you've attended any Christian wedding, which I'm sure probably most of you have, you've probably heard this passage quoted. It says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. I like that part where it says love does not delight in evil. In other words, it's the opposite of Schadenfreude. That's that German term where, you get your rocks off when you see somebody you don't like, when you see somebody fall or get ridiculed or get boycotted or get criticized or get slammed or, see a celebrity you don't like in the news and they get a divorce or something and you're just all full of glee. Okay, that's junk. That's low vibes, and that's the complete opposite of agape, which actually rejoices in the good fortune of others. Okay, so that's agape. Got the feeling of love? Yeah, it's not that ooey gooey stuff, is it? I mean, love is a choice, not a feeling, and it is a fruit of the Spirit and one of the signs of, in my opinion, an enlightened soul. Okay, the second is joy. What is joy? Well, joy is not the same as happiness, I'll tell you that. The Greek word for joy is chara or chara. It's the same word we get charismatic from. It's a gladness and a delight not based on circumstances. Okay, so joy is rooted in something deeper and more expansive. It's rooted in our infinite awareness. It's hooked up to all that is. I mean, this explains why someone could be in a third world country and have it extremely rough, and then you go over there and you see, they're smiling and dancing and they're joyful and they're clueless that they're living in squalor. Why? Because they have this joy, whether it's because, it's just they're connected with their spirit. Someone didn't tell them, oh, look, you're living in slums, or, oh, look, you're living in poverty. They have this joy, whether it's connected through family or just discovery or just the joy of living, that chara. Okay, so the second fruit of the Spirit is joy. And that's a gladness and a delight that's not based on circumstances. You'll find a person who is joyful even if they're, going through physical circumstances, pain or whatever, and yet, their joy is still there. Okay, third is peace. The Greek word for this word is irene. It looks like Irene, but it's pronounced irene. Now, this is the Greek equivalent to the Hebrew word shalom. And the third fruit of the Spirit, peace, means absence of drama or chaos. Yeah, absence of drama or chaos. Wholeness, inner tranquility. Okay, so we've just covered the three fruits of the Spirit, and as you can see, that just pretty much eliminates almost all online tarot groups. Oh, I'm just being naughty. But, yeah, seriously though, fruit of the Spirit. All right, somebody is a drama person and causing chaos all the time and always bad mouth. Well, no peace there, right? Okay, fourth fruit of the Spirit is forbearance, sometimes translated patience. Greek word for that is macrothumia. It's a really interesting word because in the ancient Greek, it was a word that was often applied to a man who could avenge himself, but he did not. Okay, so this is a lot like the strength card in tarot. Grace under pressure, somebody who could really majorly kick ass but chooses not to. Slow to anger, patient, enduring, perseverance. Perseverance in the face of opposition or ridicule or what have you, forbearance. It's the opposite of reactionary. To have forbearance, there's no fight or flight response being triggered in this person. They have been able to transcend the reptilian mind, the fight or flight, and just meet everything with a sense of, patient endurance, basically. Okay, fifth, kindness. The Greek word for kindness is Christotes. Interestingly, in the Greek, old wine was called Christos, which meant that it was mellow and smooth. So next time you think of the New Testament kindness, think of nice fine wine. But Christotes, like I said, is related to Christos, which meant a mellow and smooth wine because it was old. But it's a word that means benevolence, affability, friendliness, someone who's humane and sympathetic. Okay, the next one is goodness. Now, in some translations of the Bible, some translators lump kindness and goodness together. But actually, in the original language, there are two separate words, kindness being Christotes and goodness being agathosune. Now, agathosune means moral excellence. Goodness means moral excellence. Virtue, it's the best part of anything. It's having a quality character. It's essence, strength. Moral excellence, as I said. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're going to get to the sixth one. The sixth fruit of the Spirit is faithfulness. And the Greek word for that is pistos. And that means reliable. Someone who is trusting and trustworthy. And also the ability to persuade and be persuaded. Somebody who has some open-mindedness and intellectual ability in the sense that, they trust people for what they say, but they themselves are trustworthy, and they're able to get into a conversation with a person, persuade and be persuaded, and not being rigid, not being rigid in thought. The next one is gentleness, proutes. This means unpretentious, balanced, someone who pardons injuries, someone who corrects faults. Isn't that interesting? Somebody who rules his or her own spirit well and has the passions under control, being the emperor of your own life, so to speak. And the last one is self-control, kriteia, and that is the ability to control one's thoughts and actions. And that is not easy. How many of you are able to control many of your thoughts and actions? How many of you are even aware of your thoughts? So many times, people just avoid the hermit phase. They, avoid contemplation because then they must be aware of what they really think and what they really feel and then address it. And I think that's why so many people numb out with their handheld devices or their MP3 players or TV or what have you, or Facebook, or getting involved in dramas because they want to avoid what's going on inside. But, the last fruit of the Spirit is self-control, but you can't control your own thoughts unless you know what they are. I read a really weird but interesting study recently where they were college-age kids, they were millennials, and they were asked, they were given a choice, be alone in this room with no stimulation, just sitting in a chair, white walls just sitting there, or experiencing electrical shocks every once in a while. And do you know that, without exception, they preferred having the intermittent electrical shocks because they could not stand being alone with themselves or with their thoughts or their emotions. And I would dare say that's probably most of the population. And that's what you call being hooked up to the matrix. That's saying, I prefer to be numbing out rather than taking the red pill and sitting in a white room and actually being aware of what really is, of really what my thoughts are, my emotions, my dreams, because then you have to act on them, or you have to dismantle them, or you have to confront them, and it takes work. And most people don't want to take the work of disentangling their minds and training their brain from the programs, that are just everywhere. It starts from the womb. Basically, we're programmed by our parents, church, teachers, authority figures, and becoming conscious and aware means knowing what you think and why you think it, and to have the ability to dismantle and get rid of thoughts that are not really your own or not hooked up to all that is your infinite awareness. And that's, why tower experiences in the tarot are usually so powerful, along with the judgment card aha moment, because it's not until a person's knocked on their ass and they realize, oh my God, I've had this belief system built up on sand. I had no idea until something came and knocked it down. And when you choose to withdraw like a hermit, and you choose to contemplate and meditate and examine your thoughts and do the hard work of cognitive disassembling, it's difficult. It can be very difficult, and it could be scary, but you have the choice to do so. And so the reason why I decided to bring out the fruit of the Spirit is because, I think when you're talking about is tarot spiritual or what is spirit, you can't ignore the fruit of the Spirit in the New Testament, because it's not only one of the most popular, passages of Scripture, but most of these, if not all, can be found in all the different religions. And you might say, well, how do you know that's not just another program in the Matrix? Perhaps it is. But I would say that this is a better program than what's running on most channels, don't you think? And it seems to me that if these qualities that go so against the grain of the status quo and against the zeitgeist of the death culture and dehumanization and misogyny and sexism and violence and rape and war, it seems to me that anything that is opposite from that is probably hooked up to spirit or infinite awareness or that spark of the divine that we were all born with. At the very least, love, which is agape. Again, it's not phileo, liking people who are like you. Anybody can do that. Jesus even said that. He's like, big deal. What good is it that you love the people who love you and who you're friends with? He's like, that doesn't mean anything. He said, anybody can do that. He said, even the most vile creatures on the planet can do that. Think about it. Criminals love other criminals. They love their buds. Does that mean they're showing the fruit of the Spirit love? No, because that's phileo. It's not agape. And remember, agape is that unconquerable goodwill that always seeks the highest of others, no matter the behavior, no matter who they are, no matter the supposed worth of the object, and it's giving without expecting anything in return. So, is tarot itself spiritual? Of course not, because the tarot itself cannot reflect the fruit of the Spirit, unless, of course, somebody creates a New Testament tarot. But again, it's still just a reflection of and a symbolic rendering of it. It is not the actuality. So, I hope you enjoyed this, off the cuff. Is tarot spiritual? And as you can see, tarot itself is not spiritual. Neither are esoteric or theological, exploits. However, I do believe that spirituality is desiring that red pill at all costs, desiring to become conscious, to want the truth no matter what, to be authentic no matter the cost, to be your true authentic self, and to allow the fruit of the Spirit to grow inside you, and to keep peeling those layers of judgments, conditionings, programs, to question everything, to question even your own thoughts, and to go deeper and wider and higher, and to realize that you're infinite awareness with unlimited potential, and you can choose the possibilities you want in every moment. And I hope that you choose the fruit of the Spirit. The world will be a better place for it. And if anything, choose love, agape kind. And I hope you found this podcast interesting and helpful. I welcome your feedback. Feel free to get in touch and let me know what you think. And I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening. Again, this is Janet Boyer of the Naked Tarot Podcast. You can find me at janetboyer.com. Bye for now.